Air pollution is the contamination of the atmosphere due to the presence of substances that are harmful to the health of humans and other living organisms. Air pollution is caused by different actions. Among them is open-air burning. This week on News in Depth, Macpherson Nkuka looks at open-air burning and its effects on humans and the environment. I'm your host, Masaoso Mukwayaya. Stay tuned.
One of the most exceptional and important resources in the world is invisible. It cannot be seen, but is experienced throughout the lifetime of a living organism. People are most aware of it when it moves and creates wind. Air is a common property and intangible resource that is present in all corners of the world. Air is the unseen mixture of gases that surrounds the earth. It contains important substances such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen that most species, including humans, need to survive. Air exists in the atmosphere where it presents as a thin blanket of gases and tiny particles. Without an atmosphere, Earth would be more like a lifeless rock similar to other planets where no plants, animals, or humans can survive. Sadly, human beings whose existence hung on the availability of clean air have been in the forefront of tampering with the quality of this life-saving resource. Human activities such as deforestation, industrialization, and smoke emissions from machines such as vehicles are among many things behind air pollution.
When you burn, there are microscopic particles that can be produced. Those who enter, as long as your air is not airproof, your house is not airproof, should I say, those particulate matters will still find ways and means entering your house, and you still breathe them. You might not breathe the smoke, the scent of the smoke, you might not detect it, but those particulate matters, those organic components that have now become extremely dangerous material in the air will still find you.
Air pollution is the contamination of air resulting from a mixture of different particles in the atmosphere that cause damage to the climate and are harmful to the health of humans and other living beings. Open air burning is one of the most common forms of air pollution. This is a practice of burning different types of waste materials as a form of disposal. Burning of unwanted material in the open air where smoke and toxic fumes are released into the atmosphere directly affects the environment. But who should be concerned?
We should all get concerned because we breathe the same air. If the same air is polluted by one person, and the pollution has no boundaries, you can burn something in Charleston, somebody who is living in Kabwata will breathe the same air at one point, they'll get affected. So as an activist, I see that I have got an active role to inform the agency as well as to educate other people that open air burning or indeed polluting the environment is not a good thing.
A common scenario of open air burning in Zambia involves burning of industrial or domestic waste and clearing of land for agriculture purposes. The Zambia Environmental Management Agency, ZEMA, has noted that open air burning is on the increase and becoming an environmental concern in the country.
We've noted that this is so rampant in our communities, regardless of whether it's high density or low density areas. We are experiencing quite high numbers of activities being undertaken around burning of especially waste. We believe sometimes maybe people just don't want to pay for this service to the council or the companies that the council has engaged in terms of waste collection and of course disposal. So they end up just using fire and burn their waste. But when you are burning waste, obviously there are toxic fumes that are coming from there, and you can cause quite a lot of health dangers to a lot of other people. Not only to yourself, it's a danger not only to yourself, but also even to the other members of the community.
In Lusaka, the local authority says peri-urban areas record more cases of open-air burning compared to urban areas. The Department of Public Health has in the last 6 months dealt with over 30 cases of open-air burning.
But the reason that I've mentioned mostly is because people don't want to subscribe for waste collection, and also they don't want to have the proper way of waste disposal in making sure that waste is stored and then properly collected and disposed of. Open air burning obviously results mostly, like I said, from waste. People who have dug rubbish pits illegally, you know, we still have such things happening, which is against the law. And then also just open air burning, just to get rid of waste. So as regards the area where we receive more cases to do with that, it's the peri-urban parts of the city.
The release of uncontrolled smoke into the atmosphere pollutes the air, causing destruction to the ozone layer. Toxic compounds such as carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxide combine with other pollutants in the air to reduce the oxygen circulation in the atmosphere. This instantly impacts plant and tree life.
Already when the temperatures are tempered with, you will have in the ecosystem some negative impact and effect. For instance, there are certain grass species which may not withstand very high temperatures, and therefore those plant species will start being thinned out, will start phasing out and being replaced by the hardy grass species. And if you are keeping livestock, then you already have deficit in the livestock feed, because then the hard stuff will not be taken by animals. And that is why now some desert conditions start encroaching. So there is an adverse and a direct implication of open air burning to climate change.
Materials such as plastics are known to contain some toxic chemicals which, once predisposed in the air, pose not only a danger to the environment but also become an environmental concern for life.
The open burning releases gases which are supposed to be held as carbon being stored in the plant or the trash. Now, when we burn it, we are releasing gases like carbon dioxide, which is an obvious one. Nitro oxide is also among those being released. We are releasing even methane. All these are greenhouse gases that accumulate in the atmosphere. And when they accumulate in the atmosphere, they trap the heat which is supposed to escape from the earth into the atmosphere beyond the levels where it wouldn't affect our earth. And so it creates a blanket around the earth itself. And then when the heat is trapped, then I'm sure you have heard of the global warming. So then the environment around the earth becomes warmer than it's supposed to be ordinarily.
The ash residue left after open burning is itself riddled with a lot of chemicals and metals such as lead. Lead can be filtered into the soil when it rains or by wind. Once in the soil, it can be absorbed by plants and are consumed either directly by people or animals. Consequently, when a person consumes food with a presence of lead, chances of causing cardiovascular-related diseases as well as kidney problems become high.
We may not get affected today, but most of these, I'll talk about some of the composition of most of the waste in residential areas that are burnt. You find there will be plastic material, and plastic material contains part of the chlorine, which if it burnt at that low temperature forms what are called dioxin and furans. So these are persistent organic pollutants that will affect, and they are known to be carcinogenic. In fact, they induce cancer after some time. So depending on exposure, we may start actually creating a health burden. Among them is cancer and other respiratory diseases.
Open air burning can also cause fire. In most cases, some of these unmonitored fires become uncontrollable due to factors such as wind or other inflammable materials that may fuel the burning. Uncontrollable fires can lead to fire accidents or fire breakout causing death or the destruction of property. The Lusaka City Fire Brigade testifies of having on many calls responded to fire outbreaks resulting from open-air burning.
The impact is great. For example, someone is just cleaning the yard. Take a brazier, throw the ashes, hot ashes, you see, on a pit. From there is fire, and fire is burned out. The embers goes into the neighboring house, and you find that the house is on fire, caused by what? The open burning fire. And the destruction is great because you find that the whole house will be gutted. Why? Because the fire has been caused by someone burning out there. In some cases, we've got farms. Someone is trying to clear maybe what you call fabric so that he can protect his property. On their way, by doing so, the prime embers of the fire goes to the neighboring farm, and the farm is gutted.
The chief fire officer further laments of how people waste too much time in trying to put off fires instead of calling the fire brigade for help.
Yeah, the discussion maybe could be that people in most cases, and this I've been always talking about it, when fire, there's the outbreak of fire, people they call the fire brigade late, very late. You find that after fire has been broken out, they start struggling, fighting the fire using buckets, water from the buckets, and when the fire becomes out of proportion, when the fire becomes out of hand, then they say, can you call the fire brigade? Maybe fix the house has already collapsed. Then you find that that's when the fire brigade is being called.
Some sections of society argue that open-air burning is more environmentally friendly at night compared to daytime. However, ZEMA has charged that there is no difference in pollution as open burning in the night is as severe as burning during daytime.
Actually, it's the opposite. You see, in the night, there is very limited air movement. The wind or the air is still, meaning that if I burn, the confinement of the smoke and how much time it takes within a certain environment is longer. But in the daytime, because as you can see now, there is strong air movement. So it means that if I burn at this point, the air will carry it, and you remember diffusion, so it will diffuse within a bigger volume, as it were. So it's actually a myth. So it's actually discouraged, not just in the night, but also in the day. Open burning is an offense.
Most of the waste taken out for open burning is often reusable. For instance, materials made from plastic can be used for other purposes in order to lengthen their useful life. For items that cannot be put to reuse at home, climate change specialist Martin Sishekanu advises that such waste materials be submitted to recycling plants for further processing.
Therefore, we would expect that people can learn to separate their waste in terms of the organics and the non-organics, the metals and the glasses, so that we can take these different items, like for metals, to the metal dealers who can recycle and make use of them. And we sell plastics. We can take their plastic recycling agents who can pay for that service, and then they'll make productive use of it, and it will be used in the ecosystem. Now, the organic materials, you can actually either plow them back into the soil, or you can compost them and use the manure productively to be able to produce in your garden instead of burning.
One of the best ways to solve the problem of open burning is to introduce alternatives to the public. University of Zambia chemistry lecturer and environmental activist James Nyirenda is of the view that ZEMA should promote the use of incinerators, especially in disposal of industrial and medical waste. Dr. Nyirenda feels the open chambers used in most medical facilities to discard clinical and biological waste do not conform to standards for discarding toxic waste.
So even when they are burning at the hospital, as long as you can see extremely thick smoke, that is as good as open air burning, because most of the facilities don't have what we call air pollution abatement systems. And I think it's at this stage, the ministry tasked with the environment really needs to look at that so that as many incinerators as possible are placed around many places for people to take their material for burning, for example, incineration. And that way will help. In other developed countries, for example, Japan, in Japan, you don't burn things anyhow. You let the authorities come and pick up your garbage, which is going to be burnt or incinerated in a highly contained incinerator, such that even when the air is being, or the flue gases are being released, you won't even know something is burning of plastic, for example. The air has become more clean.
The good news is that ZEMA does not issue permits granting the medical institutions to conduct the activity. ZEMA Director Planning, Information and Research, Maxwell Nkoya, says the agency has facilitated for collaboration between the university teaching hospitals and other facilities offering incineration services.
Most of the health facilities that are compliant, they have stopped burning in those, we call them, they are just fire chambers. They are not incinerators because the temperatures do not go to the level that we want to destroy the healthcare waste. So what has happened now is the linkages now. Most of them will take either to UTH or Kalingalinga, which have incinerators which can attain higher temperatures. So they get a license from ourselves for generating of that, we call it healthcare waste. It's a form of hazardous waste. Then they'll get another license for transportation because the risk also comes in when you're transporting.
In an effort to curb open burning, the local authority has opted for specific garbage collection sites where people have a waste container outside their house collected by community-based enterprises on specific days. After collection, the garbage from communities is disposed at designated dump sites such as Chunga. Despite this, some community members do not subscribe to waste collection services and prefer burning the trash openly. This has prompted the local authority to make an appeal to the residents to report all those who burn openly.
We're coming from a background where people don't appreciate the fact that waste should be properly managed, waste should be stored, waste should be is a service that's supposed to be paid for. So some people, since time immemorial, believe that burning of waste is one way of getting rid of waste. So it's some way we have to come out of that. So we're getting there slowly, and I think also our appeal to the general public is that whenever they see anyone practicing the act of open air burning, they should feel free to rush to the local authority to just lodge in a complaint, and that will be dealt with the speed that it deserves.
The Lusaka City Council Public Health Director further states that the local authority will not hesitate to prosecute anyone found wanting.
We follow the law as regards to making sure that the nuisances are abated either through cautioning or indeed charging, because we are mandated by law to do that. And also someone who's found committing this offense can be prosecuted because it's an offense as enshrined in the law, which is in this case the Solid Waste Regulation Management Act, the Environmental Management Act, as well as the Public Health Act. So we have actually enough legal backing and enough ammunition to institute prosecution. So by law, air pollution is illegal.
But for ZEMA Corporate Affairs Manager Friday Piri, the problem will be solved quickly if members of the public take a deliberate step to change their attitude towards the environment.
One thing that we have noted is that people feel they are entitled to burn. So there is a lot of attitude change that is required, and we feel you guys in the media and of course working with ourselves, we can do much more than we have done in terms of helping the community to understand and change attitude, because I think it's more of an attitude problem. You see, in the past maybe our parents used to do this freely and without any problem, and they lived with it. So we've continued on that path. So we need to just help in changing the mindset to say, look, what you are doing is a health hazard. So before you think about it as being against the law, think of yourself.
Further, Mr. Piri says ZEMA we will intensify community awareness through various platforms to reach out to the members of the public on the dangers of open-air burning.
We normally do undertake community awareness activities where we go around with a van just announcing to tell the people that open burning is a crime. But before it is a crime, we emphasize that it is a health hazard to burn waste or any other material for that matter, because at the end of the day, you will cause not only health problems to yourself, but to other people as well. So we emphasize, first of all, it's a health problem, it's an environmental hazard, and then secondly, or thirdly, we talk about the law, that it is against the law to do this. You can be arrested, you can be fined up to 15,000 kwacha, or you can be jailed for 2 years, or both.
For environmental activists, stiffening the law on waste management will be vital in curbing open-air burning.
We don't have another atmosphere where we can be pushing our heads to breathe in. We'll breathe in the same air. So I think it will be good for us to come alive and see that open-air burning is a nuisance. Probably I should provoke Zambia Environment Agency as well as the National Assembly, or rather the Parliament, to relook at some of these rules and regulations to strengthen them, so that as much as possible, heavy penalties incur on those people who deliberately, and other people deliberately burn things to cover up maybe a crime, for example. But again, all those things are bad. So injuring the air ultimately injures our health.
Open burning poses risks to the environment and public health. Smoke pollutes the air people and animals breathe, and ash pollutes the soil, groundwater, lakes, rivers, and streams. Therefore, awareness should be enhanced throughout the country to sensitize people about the harmful effects of open burning. The government, as well as non-government organizations, should take up the responsibility to guide people on the various waste disposal methods and the different methods of classification of waste to avoid burning of materials such as plastics, rubber, expired drugs, industrial as well as chemical byproducts.
This is where we end this week's presentation of News in Depth, where we have been looking at open-air burning and its effects on humans and the environment. I've been your host, Masauso Mukwayaya. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Pleasant viewing.